Hi, I'm Sue Resnick, and we haven't had a new recipe in a while, and I wanted you to try something that I just tried the other day, and it turned out so tasty. I was really having a craving for a biscuit or something kind of bready, and actually it was a cookie. I was wishing I had a cookie, and every recipe I've looked up to try and use a no sugar, no fat cookie, they're always using bananas. And I have to tell you, bananas are okay, but I don't want everything to taste like banana. Well, recently this summer, I have found a corn stand in my area that has delicious, really sweet corn. And I thought, ooh, why couldn't I use sweet corn in place of banana in my baking and make kind of a sweet little cookie with that? Well, it turns out more like a biscuit than it does a cookie, but that's okay. I'm happy. It tastes good, and there's only, what, 4 or 5 ingredients in it. Very simple to make. So I've got things ready to go, and what I'm doing right now is cutting the corn off an ear of corn. And if you've never done that before, you put the big end down below, hold the little end up on top, and I'm just putting my knife going straight down, and I'm just cutting down through those kernels and cutting them right off the cob. You want to get in close. Of course, you don't want to cut the cob off, but you want to get in close. Find organic corn. That's the best if you can. We're fortunate that we can get organic corn in our area. There we go. And when you have it all cut off, then you take your knife sideways and you go down and you scrape. You get the last of the milk. I actually bought this a couple days ago, so it's not as sweet, not as juicy as when I first bought it, but it's still going to be good. There. So you finish scraping that off. Get the last of that good corn. Now this is 2 ears of corn in this bowl, and this is 1 ear of corn in this bowl. And I measured to see how much that was, and this is like a heaping cup. It's almost 1.25 cups of corn that came off of that ear of corn. These are good-sized ears. So I'm guessing if that's close to 1.25 cups, this is going to be about 2.5 cups, 2 to 2.5 cups. This doesn't have to be precise. We're just going to stir this into our biscuit. So I'm setting this aside. And what I wanted you to see that here is a cup of old-fashioned oats. They're not quick oats, okay? They have to have a little more density to them, okay? And we're going to use the oats like this. And then I've got a cup of the oats also in my blender, and I'm going to blend this and turn it into flour to put into our biscuits. So let me go put this on my blender, and then we'll come back. That's pretty amazing how quick that is. That took 15 seconds. There, it made a nice flour too. So now I'm going to dump that in. A little bit stuck down there. There we go. So there's my flour and my oats. Just going to mix that together a little bit with my hand just to get the two blended together. When I've tried to make things with oat flour before, it came out gummy. So I was trying to think, what can I do to keep it from being gummy? And that's just because of the nature of the oat kernel. Keeping some of the whole oats in there and putting in the whole corn helps a lot too. Now I'm going to add in a little leavening. And now what I'm using is a special kind of baking powder. This is one I found. It's by the brand Hain. It's called Featherweight Baking Powder. It's sodium-free and gluten-free. So it doesn't have any salt in it. It has monocalcium phosphate, potato starch, and potassium bicarbonate. And that's what makes it get the lift to it. It's made from the potassium. So I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of this baking powder. All right. And if you do eat salt, you're welcome to use a regular baking powder if you want. You can also season this to flavor it with about a half a teaspoon of salt if you eat salt. I try not to, so I'm not putting any salt into mine. I'm just using that. And it's funny, I've not used that baking powder very much just because I don't do baking and I try not to do too many additives, but that just need a little something. So there we go. There's our flour mixture. Now this is plant milk. You can use whatever kind of plant milk you're comfortable with. You can use an almond milk, you can use a soy milk, you can use an oat milk. I make my own oat milk. I've got my recipe online for oat milk. And I'm going to add the same amount of vinegar as I added baking powder. And this is 3/4 of a cup. So I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of vinegar there. And the reason for that is because baking powder requires a little acid to make it work. So I'm adding a little bit of the acid from the vinegar into my plant milk so that it gives the lift to the baking powder. Now here's the secret to all this. I'm putting my milk in the blender along with the vinegar, and I'm putting in that 1 ear of corn. And I think putting in this ear of corn and blending it gives more structure and hold to the biscuit so it's not crumbly. And I'm going to puree this. So I'll see you in a minute. So here we go. I pureed. It's just a nice corn milk solution. That's all pureed. It took maybe 10 seconds. And we're here at camp this week. We've rented a cottage in the Adirondacks. You've seen us up here before. This is just a different camp. We stay at different places. And I don't have a rubber spatula, so it's going to have to be good enough. And I don't have any measuring cups, so I've had to work with that to see how much I'm doing. You see, I'm just mixing that all together. The corn and the oats. There we go. And now I'm going to add the corn, the 2 ears of corn cut into it. That's a lot of corn. I think we're having corn fritters. Now this is raw corn. I suppose you could try it with frozen corn that's been thawed. I don't know what that would be like. If you decide to try it, you'll have to let me know. And you can tell the baking powder is working because it's getting a little lift to it. It's getting a little bit fluffy. Now I've got my oven set for 425. The other day when I make it, I don't know if I did 400 or 425, so we're just going to have to see how they turn out, because I don't remember. I was just throwing it together. I had no idea it's going to turn out so good, and I'd want to recreate it. So I've got 2 pans here because it makes enough for an army, I'll put it that way. And I found that the biscuits that I made in this pan with the sides turned out a little bit better than the biscuits on the flat pan because the sides radiated the heat, and it kind of made the biscuits a little more golden brown. So I know I'm going to need to leave the flat pan in longer. Here's what I'm doing. I'm just taking a scoop. And they don't puff up a whole lot. They kind of stay their same size, so you don't have to worry about crowding them. They're not going to go anywhere. There we go. All right. That's one pan, and then I'll get this other pan ready, but I'm going to pop these in the oven. All right, we've got that other pan ready. Oh, those look good. See how the edges are? That's how I wanted them to look. A little bit tipped, a little bit of golden brown on the tips. Let's see how they look underneath. Come on. All right, let's try this one. Yep, golden brown. You can't see it, but I don't want to keep scraping away here. Oh, there we go. Let's see how that looks. There, see? Nice and golden brown and a little bit of brown on the tips, and that's a good indication that it's done. So, all right, look at the recipe down below. Give them a try and let me know what you think. They're going to be tasty. So, I will write the directions down below, and if you're not familiar with that, when you're looking at the page, down below your right-hand corner, you can see a little arrow that, looks like this or looks like this. You touch that little arrow and down will drop all the description. You don't see it right away. It's not in the comments down below. It's in the write-up underneath.